Balloon.
How in the world are we in Jaloon? I don't even know. That's kind of what it feels like. So honestly, I think that this year has gone by in some ways extremely fast and in other ways like very, very slow, which is weird. And I think it kind of tends to go month to month. But we wanted to talk for just a few minutes about having just kind of a mid-year reset and refocus and just a renewal of your goals. And so I want to dive a little bit into how do we actually evaluate and decide where are we at? What do we need to do? What do we need to shift? And so why is it important to do a mid-year goal review? From your perspective. Yeah, you guys see
Better than going to the end of the year and going, shoot, didn't hit any of them.
right? Better than getting clear to the end of the year and not being sure where you were, where you landed. I know nobody in this room, but I know people that come to this goal planning, an annual business planning clinic, and we spend a lot of time focusing on what our goals are for the next year, right? So in November, we all got together. We spent a lot of time strategizing and saying, what is our budget going to look like? How much money do we want to make? How many families are we going to help this year? And we spent a lot of time on the goal setting piece. And this is both personal and business. Today, we're going to talk more about business, but I do think it's an important time to just like push pause in your life and reevaluate, like, are you still on the right track and where you thought you were going to be and where you wanted to go in this business or in your personal life too. So it's a good time, but a lot of us spend a lot of time planning the goals. And then what happens is we get busy working on things that we're doing and life happens and you stick your business plan away in a file folder or drawer or something somewhere. And a lot of people never review their goals again until that next business planning clinic, when we pull them out and we go, oh, what did I say I was going to do last year? What was I planning to do? Where did I end? And so we're not really taking the time to evaluate and decide, like, are we on track? Are we doing the right activities? And where are we at from here? So that's why it's important to do a mid-year reset. So when you're thinking through your goals, okay, so I want you to just ask yourself these questions. If anybody wants to share, you can. But I just want you to take a minute and think through what your 2023 goals were. And I want you to ask yourself because it's going to be one of these three. Either you're ahead of your goal, so you're ahead of your goal by X, right? We're ahead of our goal by X. I had a conversation with an agent last week, which was interesting because his perception was that nobody could possibly be ahead of their goal. It's not true, by the way. I'm on target. So I am right where I knew I was going to be. I'm 100% where I thought I was going to be at this time of the year. Or 3, I'm behind. And if you're behind, I want you to ask yourself, are you behind just a little bit? Or are you behind the rest? A little bit to me would be, I'm within 10 to 15% of my goal. Drastically would be, I'm 40% off. So ask yourself those questions. You have number 4. What? You have number 4. What's the number 4? Your life? Barely. We're going to talk about that. Okay, so if we wait too long to shift our strategies, we're not going to really know where we're at. And I would like you to just, like, in your own mind, dive a little bit into this and ask yourself, do you actually know where you're at in relationship to your goals? Because I think that's a really important question, right? Like, I think we talk a lot about goals and we set goals and we talk about dreaming bigger and we talk about evaluating them. The question is, are you really, like, do you have the finger on your pulse? And also my daughter told me sometimes that I'm dead because she can never find a pulse right here. I don't know. So she's like, you're dead. I'm like, oh, that's a big one. But do you really have the finger on the pulse of what your goals are and what you set out to achieve? And do you know where you're at in relationship to that? Right? Because we can answer this question, but if we really don't know, then are we really answering right? And if we don't recognize what our key success markers are, can we catch up or can we decide what does the rest of the year look like? Right? So today we're going to evaluate where we're at so far, and where we need to take action to stay on track. So I want you, when you're thinking through your goals, now, if you're going to do this right now, that's great. If you want to take some time and write some notes, but I really want you, when you're evaluating your goals, because what's going to happen from here is most of you are going to go home, and I hope you're going to think about this later, but a lot of you are probably going to go home and you're going to go, that was great. I really do need to do that. I would encourage you to actually time block some time in your calendar this week, not next week, not in August, not when the kids are back in school, but literally this week, take some time to reflect and walk through your goals. And the things that I want you to do when you're going through that is, are you clear on the end result of the goal? Now, again, thinking through this in both personal and your business goals. Did you have actual clarity on what your goals were going to be? This, I think, is one of the biggest struggles at the very beginning. Do you have clarity on what your goal is? And are you on track? So are you clear on the end result of the goal? Number two, are you in the right mindset to be objective and fair? So I put this in here because I think sometimes when we are reviewing our goals, people tend to be one of two things. They're either really easy on themselves and they go, well, it's okay because I didn't know this and I didn't know that and I didn't know this, or they're really hard on themselves and they go, well, I didn't do this and I didn't do this and I didn't do this. So what I would encourage you to do is, when you're reviewing your goals, walk in and be as objective as possible and do it with the right mindset. So you set the goals, you knew why you wanted to achieve them. If you didn't, it might be time to rewind and figure out why you wanted to hit where you're at. But walk into it objectively. Walk into it as though you're evaluating someone else's business and they've said to you, here were my goals, here's my current progress, what's the path now? Right? Because we get emotionally attached to our goals. We get emotionally attached to our business. We get emotionally attached to the things happening in our world, both personally and professionally, because this is a relationship business, which means it is personal to us, right? So walk into it with an objective mindset and ready to be fair, and also be realistic with yourself. Number three, have you identified your KPIs, your key performance indicators, to achieve your goal? So this is another thing, and I know it seems weird to be talking about this 6 months into the year, but the reason I think this one's really important is I've been meeting with several of you throughout the last, month and a half. I know Eden has too, and just kind of getting a review and figuring out, where are you at? Where do you need to go? What are some of your pressure points? And what I found is a lot of you actually don't have your KPIs identified. You don't know how to tell if you're winning, right? Because are the activities we're doing today, are they going to instantly result in a paycheck right this minute? If the only way we're measuring is by the amount of money that we've made so far this year, then we're probably missing some key factors that are really important that tell us if we're on track, if we're winning, or if we're not winning. Number four is, do you have the right support team around you? So this is a true story. It has nothing to do with business, but I think it's hilarious, and it's also a very telling of the right people around you. So this was years ago, a really long time ago. And I had a friend, and I was like on this big health kick, and I was like doing all the things, and I was working out, and the funny thing is that she was not even remotely on any type of a health journey, which is hard, right? Like, the people you surround yourself with. So like, if I'm going to lunch and I'm just going to order a salad with no dressing or whatever, and you're like, I'm going to take the nachos with extra guac and chips and a beer and maybe a shot of skin, and you're just like, I just want to have that, right? So it's harder to, if you're not surrounding yourself with the right people. But this is a true story. So one day I was like, hey, let's go to the gym. I'll meet you there at this time. And we get there, and I already didn't want to get there. We're walking in the door together. And I go to put my hand on the door. She goes, would you rather go to breakfast? And I was like, oh, she goes, let's go. Seriously, like, let's go get biscuits and gravy. And I was like, okay. And I left. Yeah, true story. Guess what? Guess who's not my accountability buddy anymore in that area? Right? Because I was in a place where should I have been strong enough to be like, no, you come with me? I probably am now, but this was 20 years ago, and Russie was a baby who was just like, yeah, I'm not going to get there and try to figure out what crap I'm going to do. So do you have the right support team around you? Who are the people that are gonna say, hey, I'm gonna meet you at lead gen in the morning. Are you gonna be there? Because I'm gonna be there. So you better be there. Let's lead gen for 2 hours, right? Who are gonna be the people that during lead gen, when you start to want to talk about last night's dinner, because it's easier than lead generation, are gonna say to you, hey, I'd love to talk about that. Let's do it at 12:30, or let's do it at noon, or whatever, right? Like, have the right support team around you. And then that goes right hand in hand with the other one is, are you in an environment that's supporting your goal? So I mean that in different, not just here in this world, because I think there's a lot of people you can find here that are going to support your goal, but are there people in your life that know your goal, first of all? Like, who are the people that you've told your goal to? Who are the people that are supporting you when you have a late night or an early morning or whatever, because you have a goal? Do the people around you know it? And are you in an environment to support it? Right? So then when you're considering these things, so we never changed the plan, or we changed the plan, never the goal. We never changed the plan. Just keep on going. We're going to great advice for today. That's it. Mic drop, right? Okay, so when you are going through and before you change your goal, because what is the most common thing 6 months into the year, now we're 7 months into the year, that people do? Chill. Chill? Relax. Yeah, we've already not hit it. There's no way I'm going to hit it. Change the goal. We changed the goal. Why? Why do we change it?
They don't think they can catch up.
Yeah, we don't feel like we can catch up. So we're like, no, we're not going to hit it anyway. It's kind of like the I'll start on Monday mentality. I already went to religion for breakfast, so might as well have tacos and margaritas for lunch. And then we've already done that. So, you know, I might as well have dessert with dinner. Might as well stay up late. I'm not going to really work out. I'm going to start fresh Monday. Right? How often do we change our goal? True story, real talk. Like, we look at the goal and we go, that's too, there's no way we're going to achieve it. And so we're just going to give up. And the sad reality is a lot of people just give up at this point in the year and they go, I'm going to try again next year. I see it all the time, every single day. I'm just going to try again next year. Got some really good momentum going. I'm going to try again next year. So the goal should be your immovable object, unless here's the things that would warrant, in my opinion, a goal change. I can't remember this. Let's see. So here's where unless, so we don't default to just automatically changing the goal, but what we do have to have is the reality check with ourselves. So number one, have you already achieved the goal? This would probably be a really good reason to change your goal, right? I had a conversation with one of our agents 2 weeks ago, and the conversation went like this. Hey, I need to talk to you about my goals. I said, awesome, let's meet this day. We start walking through it. And the problem was this. I'm within 10% of my year-end goal right now at the end of June. That's a good problem to have. I don't think I set a big enough goal, even though I thought my goal was huge at the end of last year, because I increased it by 10%. In a year, I wasn't sure what we were walking into. So now what? Right? So we had to look at a couple things, because is it just about the fact that we had a really good first half of the year? Now we're looking at multi-year trends. We're diving a little deeper into the numbers to say, is this common for you that that 90% of your goal is reached in the first 6 months? Or is this is this really like different activities? What's working, what's not? So if we've already achieved the goal, or we know we're really close to it, it might be time to push the goal out or to change it slightly to have it look different. Before you push the goal out, I'm going to encourage you to do that exercise. There's seasonality in Utah, right? We have certain times that are busier than others. There are some people who are saying, freaking batten down the hatches and freeze dry all your stuff, because you're going to have a rough fourth quarter. It's going to be cold. We're starting to hear that. So if that's the case, is it going to make sense to keep pushing really strong right now? Yes, but it may not make sense to double your goal, if that makes sense, right? So if you've hit 90% of your goal, but then when you look at your multi-year trends and you say, oh, well, yes, I've done a really great job this year. And I'm still, though, normally 75% of my business happens in the first 6 months. Now we know we need to adjust the last 6, we need to adjust the goal, but we probably don't need to adjust it drastically, right? Does that make sense? So if you've already achieved it, it might be time to think about changing it. Have you learned more about your goal? than what you originally did. So what I mean about this is it just no longer, the goal really doesn't deserve a spot in your life anymore because you've learned more about it. So maybe you went into this year with a goal to sell 75 homes. And 90% of your business is first-time home buyers. And are those first-time home buyers affected a little bit more in this market than maybe somebody else? Potentially, right? So maybe we know more about our goal than what it was when we made the goal, right? So if we've learned more about our goal, this might be a good time that we need to adjust it because it may no longer make sense based on the world that we live in today, okay? Is our goal still achievable? So this, I think, is when we're talking about being objective and fair when we're looking at our goals. Can we really still achieve it? And you're going to be the only one that knows that. And this is not me giving you the pass to say, if you can't, just give up on the goal. But I want you to take a little deeper dive and say, if you look at that and there is no way you can achieve it, you have to decide what kind of motivation it works for you. Because some people are really motivated by a huge goal, even if they know they can never hit it. Some people need to hit their goal, and that's what motivates them. Right? So if your goal is no longer achievable, you know there is no way, shape, or form based on today's information with what you've learned with your strategies that you can no longer achieve it, before you change the goal, I want you to take some time to identify what were the roadblocks that got in the way of you hitting your goal. What did you not anticipate? Right? I think this is important. I believe this was like very, very evident in 2022. At the beginning of 2022, we all had a pretty clear idea of what the year was going to be, right? Like we walked into 2022, multiple offers. We basically just have to sneeze and we can list a property. If someone says, bless you, you say, awesome, do you want to list your house? Perfect. I can have it sold in 2 days with 75 mark offers, whatever, right? Walking into 2022, we had a very different idea of what the year was going to look like than about May or June of 2022, right? It was like a drastic shift in the market at that time. We learned something different about our goal. Now, there's still a lot of people that achieved their goals, had their best years yet in 2022, but those people shifted their strategies very quickly. So before you change your goal, if it's no longer achievable, you need to take some time to really dissect like what happened in your world that made it so this goal was not achievable, right? And that might be something personally that happened. That might be something that happened in the business. That might be something that happened. Maybe you were in a partnership and you're no longer in a partnership in your business, and that's going to shift your strategy and change your goal. But before you change it, just really think through what were those roadblocks that you did not anticipate. The other question is a strategy shift in order, right? So we talk about the GPS. Who can be my little start student and tell me what GPS stands for? And Eden's not allowed to count. She knows it. Your GPS, your one-page business plan.
I 135.
Like a 135, yep, one goal. 3 priorities, 5 strategies. Okay, so we all have strategies going into the year, right? We said this is our goal. In order for us to hit our goal, these are our 3 priorities we must have. And then here's our strategies under each priority, right? So is a strategy shift in order? Are we getting the results from our strategy that we thought we would? And then are we focused on the right activities? Because I think there's a lot of disconnect in what works and what people are doing. Why? Why is there a disconnect? Like we know what works. Why are we trying all the things?
What's fun?
It's not fun sometimes, right? What else? Why do we think that there's a disconnect between what we know we should do and what we actually do? Things come up. We let distractions get in the way. We're comfortable. We're not connected to our why. Maybe it's time to reevaluate our why. Right? Like, has anybody's why changed over the last few years? Right? Like your why changes, it adapts and evolves. And if you're no longer connected to the goal and why you were doing it, or the strategies that you thought were going to work, and now the activities aren't in alignment with the strategies, it's probably a good time to take a peek at that and see what you need to do. And then What changed and why is it no longer valid? So the strategy might still be right, but our activities to achieve what we're trying to do maybe are off track. Or maybe we're not doing enough of them. Or maybe we haven't consistently. Think about that for a minute. So you got to take action, right? Action is required. So now that we know how to better prepare, how are we going to do it? Has anybody had to shift a strategy this year that they maybe want to share? Like something that you were originally, you were going this way, this was what you were going to do, and you had to shift based on the results that you were getting. Does anybody have anything like that they want to share with us?
I mean, I made a major switch where I was the beginning of the year, I was with a different brokerage and I was on a team and I was seeing that it wasn't really taking me anywhere. So I switched to take up this. So that was a big one. I had to kind of like really swap my entire business plan on basically.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And you identified it. You said, okay, I got to make a switch here. There's reason. Now here's what I'm going to do. Great example. Anybody else have something that they want to share? We're like a tight group. We can be vulnerable. We don't have to be scared of saying something didn't work. We have to shift our strategy a little bit. Anybody else have anything they want to share there?
I think my strategy, I'm a little bit like a kid in a candy store when it comes to real estate. Like it all looks so really exciting. I want to be a part of all of it. But I have to change my strategy and learn to walk before I run and run before I look. Kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just kind of changing my strategy to dial in and really refine my process.
Yeah. Anybody else?
On our event, we're getting more like narrowed down on who we're inviting.
Mm.
We used to be very open, but our business has grown so much that, you know, we filter out all of it. We're wasting money on.
Yeah.
And that sounds terrible, but I think that when you shift into a business mindset, that's what you need to do financially. And I think that's the biggest shift for me, which is about business.
You sure do, right there. Yeah, so everything that we're doing, every action, we have to really like identify if the action that we're taking, is it creating the result that we expected? Right? So what does that mean? You gotta know our numbers. And I know as soon as I start talking about numbers, people get like all like weird and itchy in their seat. And they don't want to talk about it. And nobody wants to make eye contact with me. But you guys, in order to know if something's really working, you have to say, have you really done the activities that you knew were going to work to get your results? And if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know how many leads you have, if you don't know how many people you're talking to, if you don't know how many appointments it takes you to get an agreement signed, you don't know how many agreements you need to be able to get something to close, those numbers matter. That's like the very basic economic model from the MREA. And if you guys haven't read this recently, like it's a really good time to go back through and revisit like some of these, you know, the four models. The economic model is where it all really starts, and it's about knowing your numbers. And then once you know those numbers, so if you're having, I'm going to use example, Kaylee, I'm going to use your activities example. So if you know your events, you're like, okay, for this event, I have a goal of X amount of people showing up. And from that amount of people, I want to get this amount of referrals. From this amount of referrals, I want to get this amount of closings. I know you're really good at this too. I know you guys do that. Travis, I know you and Blaine do this. Like you have a goal around how many people you want to attend your activity. And then from that event, how many referrals do you want to get? Well, if you don't know that you have to invite 500 people to get 200 people to show up, to get 20 referrals, to get 2 to close, you're just trying anything, right? So it's really identifying the actions and then are you actually consistently taking the actions that you know work or that you thought you were going to work? Because if right now you're thinking, I'm just going to blow up my whole business because I'm behind and I want to get caught up, and so I'm going to start all over, you're doing yourself a disservice, because every time something gets hard, if you start over and say that's not working, I would say question yourself more on, have you actually done the activities that you need to do to be able to determine if that's working? And that is knowing your numbers. Okay, I like to call, has everybody heard of a cash talk? Cash talk. So some of us like to call it a little come to Jesus talk, but it's a cash talk. And what cash stands for, and it's a conversation with yourself, right? So cash is spelled like this. What do you think cash stands for? For the K? This is knowledge. Is it a knowledge problem? If I am, I'm gonna say if I'm not hitting my goal, is it a knowledge problem? Do I know everything that I need to know about my goal in order to hit? Guess what the next one is? By the way, if you have a team, this is a really good monthly chat. Attitude. So is it an attitude problem? So when we're evaluating our goals, is it a knowledge problem or is it an attitude problem? Do we have the right attitude to win? Is it a skill set problem? So we know what we need to do. We've got a winning attitude, but maybe our skill set's lacking. Where could we go to get better at our skills? Team meeting, a lot of places. Team meeting, PE, conversation mastery. Are the conversations different that we're having now than we did a year ago?
Mhm.
Would that be helpful to know how other people are handling those conversations? Conversation mastery. Maybe there's someone that's doing what you want to do. And you mentor with them or you intern work for them or whatever. And then the last one, which is actually probably the most important. Habits. So anytime there's an issue in your business, you can, or your personal life really, you can look through this and say, do I have the knowledge? Am I walking in with the right attitude? Do I have the skill set that I need? And do I have the right habits? So this one, I actually think is probably the one that most people are lacking in. We know what we need to do. I think in this business, we're generally happy people. We have a good attitude. Quite frankly, I don't think you'd have an entrepreneurial spirit if you didn't have an attitude that believed you could win. And the skill set, really, if you get in the habit of doing something every day, are you going to get better? Right? Like think about when you had to learn a skill for the first time, like the first time you rode a bike, or the first time you got on a phone and you had to talk to somebody, you're like, hey, it's Keller, Russie, Edwards, and you don't even know what you're saying, right? It feels awkward and clumsy. So honestly, have a little cash talk with yourself and then determine like, what are we needing to shift from our activity? Is it an activity? Is it a system? Is it a strategy? Do we need to change the goal altogether or do we need to just keep going with it? So we've already set the goals. Now we're just we're identifying the goals. And this is where it's always, today's a great day to start fresh. So if you haven't been tracking well, it's okay. There's no time like the present. And you're not going to be perfect at it every day. You're just not. But you have to have the mindset of you're going to walk into it the next day, ready to start again, or even that afternoon. Then you're identifying your key lead measures. So what are the key things that are going to tell you if you are hitting your goal or if you aren't? Then we've got to do the activities. So this is the difference between a lead and a lag measure. So our lead measures are the things that we're doing. They're active. It's like a verb. The lag is what shows up later. So a lead measure would be what? Daily lead generation, lead follow-up. Lag measure is when your paychecks are going to start to show up. So you're doing the activities, then our lag measures show up. What happens if what we thought was going to happen from our lead measure doesn't show up in the lag? Then what do? We measure our results. We keep score. So if we thought we were going to have to talk to 20 people to get a lead, and it turns out we have to talk to 50, then we've got to shift our activity, right? We've got to make more time for lead generation. We've got to decide, are we going to run different ads? Are we going door knocking more? Are we going to double down on our open houses? If you were getting a different result from open houses before, and now you're not getting the same, you might have to do 4 open houses a month to hit your goal. And if your goal is important to you, and you connected it to why you're doing it, because guess what? If you're just every day waking up and you don't have a reason why you're coming to work today, guys, I got to tell you, there's a lot of other things that are easier you could be doing than this. If there's not a reason, if there's not something that's like, I got to do this for this reason. Oh my gosh, like some of us are just spinning on a hamster wheel and we don't have clarity on where we're going or what we're trying to do. or what it means when we get there. So we're measuring the results, we gotta keep score. And then we need to evaluate the process and make adjustments. This is where I think it really comes in handy. So honestly, have someone that you trust in your world that will help you be that objective person. It is hard to be objective for yourself. Either we're way too hard on ourselves, like I said earlier, or we're a little too easy on ourselves. But it's hard to be objective, right? Because in our head, what lives there? All of our reasons, all of our excuses, all of our things that are more fun to do. Right? I mean, I know right now, all of you made a decision to sit your butt in these chairs, but I also know on your Instagram, you're probably scrolling right now, that's fine. And you're seeing somebody that's golfing, or somebody that's at the pool, or somebody that's working at a lunch where really you're day drinking. Would that be more fun than what we're doing right now today? I mean, I don't know, I'm a pretty good time. But there's more fun happening, but you made a decision to come here today and sit in the chair and work on yourself and your goals. So evaluate your process and make adjustments and have someone that you can talk to say, hey, this isn't working for me. What would you do? Have those people to help bounce it off to you, and then break your activities down to the smallest, most consistent step forward. When we're talking about our knee-jerk activity is always like our knee-jerk reactions to reduce the goal or to change the goal or to stop doing what you're doing. But when you decide to run a marathon, do you wake up in the morning and go, I think I'll run 26.2 miles today? Kaylee, is that what you do? You wake up, you're like, you know what? Actually, I'm in my life, but I'm going to go 26.2. No, you start by getting your butt off the couch. And then you start by saying, I'm going to run to the end of my driveway. And then you start by running to the light pole. And then you run to the end of the block. And then before you know it, you're running a mile straight. And then you're running more, but it starts out small and consistent. So if for you, it's just you making the commitment to show up every day to conversation mastery. And you're showing up and you're putting yourself out there, and you're being vulnerable, and you're having conversations with people. Whatever it is, what's the number one smallest step that's going to push you forward? And the one thing they talk about, the domino effect, right? So it's the number one thing that makes everything else easier or unnecessary. A lot of your problems right now are solved through lead generation and money, right? Like money doesn't make the world go round, but it sure makes it easier to get there, right? So a lot of things are going to happen that way. I heard something recently and it said that accountability is a relationship that you invite someone into. So accountability is not something, I can't hold you accountable. You have to be self-accountable, but it's a relationship that you're inviting somebody into that says, hey, Troy, I'm struggling in this area and I know you're crushing it. I want it, like, could we hold each other accountable to that? Or could I send you every day? I'm making a commitment that every day I'm going to text you if I didn't eat the carbs or whatever it is, right? Or I'm going to text you every day that I promise you that I'm going to talk to 5 people a day. I'm going to text you at the end of the day to tell you that I talked to those 5 people, or those 25 people, or those 50 people, or however much it takes to hit your goal, right? So have an accountability buddy, and then and invite someone into that relationship with you. And whether that's someone here in the office, whether that's somebody in your world that's not here today, whatever it is, you have to have somebody that knows your goals. Remember at the beginning when I said, do people know what you're trying to do? Right? Because it's really easy to just sit and Netflix and chill all day on a Friday if nobody around you knows your goals. Because if somebody around you knows your goals and they're like, Steph, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I saw you at the pool. You told me you were going to door knock today.
Yeah.
Did you already door knock?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Good.
have to tell
I
you
did.
something. It's
Let's hear it.
really funny. So every single day I gave Kenzie a list of wedding stuff to do, all the way up to the wedding. And we're sitting on the plane coming back. And I write her this list of all of what I'm doing when we get back. And she goes, oh my gosh, it's so nice to have a list that has nothing to do with wedding. But I've hit my goal on every day except for today, because I forgot that meeting that I ended up into. So I've hit my goal on making my calls every day, and it's been good. So.
Do the activities and they'll show up, but don't just give up on your goals before you actually give the activities that you thought were going to work the chance. And sometimes it's easier to be like, you know what, this bright shiny thing here actually looks funner than actually just talking to people or lead generate. If you need some extra accountability, the 401 I think is a really great way to do it. Speaking of, I'm gonna talk about your to-do list. So how many people have some type of a list each week of the things they want, they have to do? And we can call it a to-do list, we can call it whatever you want. The 411 challenges it a little bit and says, and the 411 is actually backwards. So there's 411, it stands for 1 year of your annual goals, monthly goals, weekly goals. It doesn't matter that it's July, you can have an annual goal for the rest of this year. And the idea of this is, what can you do this month that's going to push you forward to your annual goal? What can you do this week that will push you forward to your monthly goal? And when you're working on your 401, don't go through and fill out all 4 weeks at one time. A lot of people do that. You need to actually evaluate at the end of each week and say, did I make the progress that I thought I was going to make on my goal? Did I have the right skill set? Am I getting into the right habits? What are the things that I need to do that are going to push me forward for this month and push me forward for this year? I listened to a great podcast today. I'll share it with you. It's from my favorite, my girl Rage. But one of the things is one of the lies that you're telling, the three lies that you're telling yourself to keep you, that are keeping you from being successful. And one of them is that you need motivation. And it's not that you need motivation, you need momentum. And momentum is created by the little tiny things that you do every single day. And then you track them and you're doing that. So I encourage you to take a little deep dive into your goals. So a 4-in-1 is a great way to do it. And then it's just making sure that you identify at the end of each week before you're planning for the next week, did I really focus on the right things? And here's what I'm going to tell you, especially on the personal side. If there's something that you have on your 4-in-1 all the time and you're never hitting it, there's probably a reason. So either you're not connected to it, or there's for some reason you're procrastinating, or you're keeping it off of your success list. So pay attention to the things that you're never doing too, because if you're adding them on just because you feel like that's the right answer, that's not the right answer. This business is, it's all about you and it's about what you're willing to do. And so if you're not going to do something, then don't put it on your list of the things that you're going to do. If you're not going to ever door knock because you hate that, then plan a different way to lead you. If you're not going to cold call because you hate that, plan something else. But you can't say, I hate to cold call, so now I don't know what to do, and sit and try to decide who you're going to talk to for the next 2 hours, because that's not lead generation. Going like this on Facebook and Instagram for 2 hours is not lead generation, trying to decide who you're going to talk to. So make sure that you've got the skill set. So take a little deep dive. If you need to redo some of your numbers and you haven't been tracking, now's a great time to start tracking. So you should really know how many people do you need to talk to get an appointment. How many appointments do you need to go on to get a contract signed? That's your conversion rate. If you don't know it, figure it low right now. Okay, because I feel like I always had a really good conversion rate. And I think that everybody that had a really great conversion rates have gone down a little bit. Why? There's a little bit of a difference in our market than there was, right? So it wasn't quite as easy just to be like, you want to buy a house? I'll help you buy a house. Let's go find a house. There was different challenges with that, right? But it's a lot easier to talk to somebody about buying a house when the interest rates are 3% and they're literally going to be paying less for their house than what they're paying for rent. It's a different conversation when we're trying to talk to people about why they would pay more for their house versus rent because of what the interest rates are doing. So our conversion rates might be different than what we anticipated originally. So really know those numbers. That's your economic model. The other way to still continue to achieve our goal, if we're not selling as many homes as we thought, what's one of the other models that we should be looking at besides just our economic model and our lead gen model, right? We already know if we're not hitting our numbers, we've got to get more leads and we've got to convert more. We've either got to get better at converting them or we have to get more. It's the only way to get there. The budget model is so important. You guys, if you're not taking a look at your expenses on a regular basis and saying, am I getting a return on this investment? I said my expense for this area was going to be this, and I'm not getting the return I expected. You got to take a deeper dive into your budget. And I know not everybody loves numbers, but I know they can be intimidating. And I'm happy to go through exercises with you. Play red light, green light with your expenses. There's a lot of money we spend. I'm a firm believer you can still hit your goals even with less transactions, because the average commission check is really great right now. I think when I started, the average commission check was, I think the average home price was about $112,000. It's almost $500,000 now, guys. Kaylee, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just, okay, before you cut something out too, because this is something that we've noticed, like, make sure what you're spending your money on, you're maximizing it. So for instance, like all the events that we do, we don't straight up ask for a referral. And I feel like that's really hurt us over the last few years, and like, that's the shift that we're trying to make. Because- Yeah. So we just kind of expected because they were happening, like, we weren't being purposeful with it. But yeah, that's just something to say on the budget. Like, we shouldn't cut out the event.
Right.
We need to be asking.
You need to be more purposeful with them. Absolutely. And you may be looking at something and saying, gosh, I signed up for, I mean, I'm gonna use myself, full disclosure. I signed up for AM cards at the Shift into Overthrive, because that dude, holy crap, I think he sold like 40% of the room. If you've ever heard someone who had an elevator pitch that could spit their value proposition out in a second, guess how many times I sent out my monthly AM cards then?
What is it?
Zero.
It's $39 a month. I've zero. I literally haven't even opened the initial email. So if anybody wants it, I got a lot of credits. But seriously, that's one of those things where in every month when I'm looking at my expenses, I'm telling myself like, I'm gonna do it this month. I'm probably not, and is it gonna give me the return? But that's exactly right. If I'm gonna get the return on it, it's probably not time for me to then look at my organizational model and say, do I need to hire somebody else to do this? Because I'm not going to at this point. I know I'm not. So who do I need to have? Who's in my world that can do that for me? But you're absolutely right. Putting some accountability around your expenses. So when you're doing your mid-year review, look at that too, because there's a lot of different ways to hit your goals. And it may not just be getting more leads. It might not be closing more deals. It might be being more fiscally responsible, because we can still hit our net goal at the end of the year, depending on what we're doing. Right? And I know that's not sexy or fun, but that's just like the reality of business. We might not be able to go to Starbucks every day or whatever, you know? And if that's something that you're not willing to give up, then that's great. Then you've got to look in your budget and see what else there is, or start putting some expectations around it. I want to go to Starbucks every day. So my goal is every day. I don't actually, this is just like putting some expectations around it. If you want to go to Starbucks every day, your goal should be every day in Starbucks. Can you connect with 2 to 3 people that you can add into your database? Now is my $7 cup of coffee, because it's not even $5 anymore. Now is my $7 cup of coffee worth it? It is if I just added 3 people to my database that I'm going to follow up with, and I put them on a smart plan, and I'm consistent with talking to them. I see this all the time with the quarterly calls. When I'm making all my quarterly calls, well, are you asking for business? Are you talking to them about real estate? Because you should be. They're getting real estate information. They should be getting it from you, not from somebody else, right? Does this make sense? It's just like connecting. Couple last things. I just want to remind you that you need simple systems that are followable. So you mentioned your refining systems. We in this industry love to complicate. Don't get so creative. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, sweetheart. Kiss. It's like a little, I used to sit on my computer forever because I tend to overcomplicate. So don't overcomplicate your systems. Find a system that's going to work, keep it simple, and do it consistently and measure the results. And then if the results are not showing up, then we make the slight adjustments and say, okay, we thought this was going to work. This isn't working. Is it that we need to tweak? Do we need to get a better skill set? Is it a different habit we need to get into? What is it, right? And this is for everything. This isn't just business. This is your personal life too. You know, if you had a personal goal to save money this year, like this is a good example of the time you would shift your goal. If you had a personal goal to have money this year, you want to save, you want to have money, this little hidey hole of cash, but then you had a great opportunity to buy an investment property and you have to use that cash. Did we fail on the goal? Because in my opinion, I just actually probably tripled the money. It's just not physically, I can't cash it out of the bank right now today, but did I protect my long-term well? Yes, right? So I would evaluate that and not saying, well, you're a failure because you didn't have this amount of money in savings. I've got a savings account that's just happens to be on a foundation and bring me money, right? So it's evaluating and looking at those things. We have to be aware, then we've got to have systems. Accountability is huge. It's a really big deal. We let ourselves down far easier than we let other people down. Have the buddy that's going to show up and actually go into the doors of the gym with you, not ask you to go to Village Gym and have biscuits and gravy instead, especially if you know that's your weakness. Have someone in your world that is going to be your person that says, hey, where were you? Brooke, you told me you were gonna meet me today and we were gonna leave Jen. Where were you? You weren't there. Have people in your life that can be those people for you. And that can be a coach, that can be an accountability buddy. If you need help with lead generation, if you need help with conversation mastery, come in. There's a group of people every single day that are lead generating in a room together, and that's open to anybody to come to, as long as you're in there to work and to do the things. So that's it. All I want to say, the last thing is, like, if you didn't win the day, just consider it evidence gathering and get back at it. Because I think a lot of times we don't win the morning, or we don't win the day, or we don't win the week. And then we tend to just keep pushing the goal down the road. We're going to do it Monday. We're going to start fresh in August. Now it's like the middle of the month. I swear the 15th happens and it just starts going through. I'm just going to give it hell in August. I'm going to start fresh in August. You guys, there's still a lot of runway left in July for you to make an impact. And this is where the separation really comes in. This is where the people that get purposeful with their business start to win versus the people that stay entrepreneurial or tell ourselves the excuses. So if you didn't win the day, just consider evidence gathering. You gathered evidence on what didn't work. Now, how do we go and take that evidence and be more purposeful with what we're going to do tomorrow? Right? Okay. Any questions? Anything you guys want to share?
I'll share something. I think the 411 is an incredible tool. Like closing out your day is super important, but it reminds you to like close out your week and at least close out your month. One thing that I've kind of at this point now just kind of subconsciously do is the 15th protocol. Has anybody heard of the 15th protocol? It's a system that I do in tandem with the 411, but essentially what it means is on the 15th of the month, we're now halfway through the month, right? And that consider that like your halftime. So at halftime, the coach comes in, you're assessing where you're at. Are we, what do we need to tweak, to refine? What can we do to get ahead of the game? What are the other players doing? Just your halftime meetup. And so also implementing the 15th protocol for me has been super vital because I know we're halfway through the month. Now I have the second half of the month. What do I need to do to make sure that I close the month on pace or ahead of where I want to go? So being intentional about assessing not only where you're at, but what plays you need to make sure that you're ending that month. I think it's a good reinforcer to make sure that it happens.
Yes, I love that. You guys, I don't know if everybody watches sports, I do, but the halftime is so critical. This is why we're doing halftime hustle too. When a sports team is losing, do they ever come out and just like, let's say we're playing football and at halftime and come back out, both teams come back up, fired up, right? They come out of the locker room, they're fired up, win or lose, they're going to play the hell out of that game. And you can tell a lot about what somebody's doing by how they play the last half, right? And they don't always win. There's only one winner in football each week. I mean, I guess there was a tie one time, but there's a winner. But the team that loses doesn't come out and just like not play. They come out and they play and they still play to win because maybe they're still going to lose, but instead of losing by 20 points, they lose by 10 points. Right. So even though it's halfway through the year, implementing a half, you're halfway. Let's go into the hot locker room, have a little huddle with yourselves. Do you guys feel like I'm almost like a football player right now? I'm almost like I could probably be a football coach. Yeah. But I'm not a cheer. But it's time to have the halftime talk with yourself. You guys halfway through the year. Implement your 15th day protocol. Halfway through, what are you going to do that's going to make an impact for the next, you're not even 6 months anymore, you got 5.5 months left. The next 5.5 months, what are you going to do that's going to impact this year? And it may just be really great momentum leading into an incredible 2024. But if you give up now, you're going to be starting fresh again, and you're going to get back into I'm going to start it on Monday, or I'm going to start it next month. Right now, today, how you lead, what you decide to do, put a calendar appointment in your calendar with yourself to have a halftime huddle with yourself. Say, what have I got to do? What do I have to do to win? Because we want you guys to win. And there's people that are winning. And an attitude has a big part of it, right? There's people right now that have done way more than they thought they were going to be able to do this year. They're not just going to let the foot off the gas and just coast down the road the rest of the year. They're going to keep pushing because we don't know what tomorrow's like. They're going to keep doing it today. Okay, anything else? Anything you guys want to share? Anything you're implementing? Anything that's working? Any ahas?
Lots of ahas.
Jesse?
Haley and I recently just came to the realization that we both prefer paper
Ooh,
for
okay.
lots of different things. So we're in the process of making a master checklist that's on paper for every transaction. Old school.
Going old school, whatever works.
We realized that the digital checklist just, we weren't connecting, we weren't actually getting in to do it. So we're going back to paper.
You gotta do what works for you. So yeah, I love that. Anybody else? Ahas?
That's enough. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't forget that done is better than perfect. That's been my,
Ooh, I like
I have
that.
to do that. I have to do that.
Keep it simple, sweetheart. Talk nicer to yourself. Just kidding.
Yeah. Earn the title. Yeah, done is better than perfect.
Done is better than
Get
perfect.
it moving, because yeah,
Imperfect,
I will analyze something beyond death.
imperfect action is gonna be perfect in action every day of the week. I see a lot of people that have the most beautiful, perfect things, but they don't do anything with them. And there is someone out hustling them every day of the week who's just out there. They don't know a dang thing, but they got off the sidelines, they got in the game and they started playing. And that imperfect action is going to help them with their skill set. It's going to get them in better habits and they're gonna win. And they're gonna beat you in the race. If you're so concerned with getting everything perfect right now today that you're not taking action, and I'm not saying be incompetent, keep learning, but man, on the job training, stumble forward, fail forward if you have to. Okay, anybody else? I need at least one more aha. Guys, I have less people in the room in St. George than they had even. Hannah, did you have an aha?
Yeah, it's so silly. I decided to do Popeyes and I don't do them and it was super overwhelming. So I wanted to do it perfect. And because it was so hot, I didn't want to walk around with frozen water pops. So I didn't freeze them. Lesson learned, people don't want otter pops. So. No, I can't be late, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm honestly just do something and now you're gonna shift to the next one.
Well, so I put all the rest in the freezer to hand out later today, but people were very gross about
Oh, they were?
it.
Oh my gosh. Somebody shows up grouchy in my house and I'm gonna tell you. They put it frozen.
Have you seen the mom hack about putting it in a tumbler?
No.
Yeah, so you put like ice in it and then you put the otter pops in there and then you can. like,
Well, how about
put it
like
in.
a little bag?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm in a stroller and I was walking around. I'm not frozen. I'm not frozen. Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Going once, twice?
I'll get one. I like the 411. I've done my 411 twice with two different people in the office and it helps me reassess and regather to make sure that I'm having the right goals at the right time and I'm not overwhelming myself.
I love it. I think the 401 is super impactful and I would encourage you to have a 401 on the personal side. And I don't know if that's just because I'm having a lot of conversations. You guys, a lot of people are just going through it right now. We gotta work on some personal growth stuff too, because I think it's sometimes easy to hide in the business side of the world. So have that personal side too, and like, what are you gonna do to help yourself personally this week as well? Maybe you just need a little date with yourself. Whatever it is. Put it on your 401. Love that. Anybody else? Okay, don't forget to check your agent mailbox. You do likely have mail. Also, along these. You guys all know where their mailbox is?
There's an official, actual, true mailbox with physical mail, so people know.
With
It's
physical
pretty
mail?
cool.
It's right down that hallway. Also, this is just another quick reminder, if you haven't checked lately on the MLS to see what your mailing address is. You might want to check that, 'cause some people still have our South Ogden office address, even though our office address has changed. So check your
And
mail.
some people, your home addresses are on there. All out there.
Yeah, and if you're okay with that being public, that's fine, but anyway, check that. And we have Fairway, I think they're here. We've got my friend Jeff up here that's gonna come and talk to us for just a minute. Okay, thanks you guys.
Thank you.
Remember, we're gonna help if you need anything.